phenomenon is very old and has been happening for a long time, and it seems that people who believe in UFOs or aliens have given a new name to it, have recast it in a different way. If you look at the way in which aliens are often depicted, they're either very lizard, reptile-like, beastly, or they're very beautiful, so that there you can see this imagery of the otherworld beings, either being beautiful or ugly. And that's very common for most mythologies in describing otherworld beings.
In the 50 years since the Roswell incident, and even more so in the last few years, extraterrestrials have invaded our national consciousness, shaping current folklore.
I think aliens are usually portrayed in the media or film or television as being hostile.
Get on your radio and sound at all points along. Block all highways, stop all traffic, and call every law enforcement agency in the state.
Have extraterrestrials visited Earth? True or false, UFO mania has a firm grip on our pop culture. Stores like Charlie Brown's in California have jumped on the alien bandwagon and devoted entire shelves to merchandise that's out of this world. Even in the last year, Roswell the comic book attacked the marketplace.
We love our mythology, you know, and the old mythology is not really relevant to us anymore. So we're looking for new mythology, and you know, comics are a big part of that. You know, Batman is part of our new mythology. James Bond from the movies is part of it, and Roswell is probably even more fascinating than any of those other characters, because I don't mean my character Roswell, but I mean the incident, because we know that actually happened. That's not fiction. We know that something actually happened back then, something big that there was a major cover-up about. And you know, so that's kind of mythology even closer to home, and that makes it very exciting and very relevant to our lives. We want to know.
Now, part of the SF Vortex mythology is the ever-volatile war room. And what better topic to incite our guests than Roswell fact or fiction? In round one, folks, I'm joined by Kevin Randle, author of over 80 books and one of the foremost experts on the events at Roswell. And Carl Flock is here, a noted writer and researcher who believes in ufology but does not believe an alien ship crashed at Roswell. And Don Ecker, a UFO investigator and news editor of UFO Magazine. And Michael Shermer is here, editor of Skeptic Magazine and the author of Why People Believe Weird Things. Gentlemen, welcome to the War Room. Let's go back to 1947, Roswell, New Mexico. Kevin Randle, was it a spaceship? Was it a balloon? Was it a leftover dress from J. Edgar Hoover? What was it that landed at Roswell?
I think there's absolutely no doubt that what crashed at Roswell was an alien spacecraft, and that's based on the eyewitness testimony, the people who were there, the members of the 509th Bomb Group who were responsible for retrieving this thing. Clearly, they knew what they were looking at. Clearly, they knew what they were picking up. It was a spacecraft.
Your proof is the eyewitness testimony.
Of the people who were there, the credible people, the people who retired as colonels and generals from the military. Right. These people have no reason to suggest something otherwise.
What about all the other people that are saying things like time travel machines were discovered there, and what does that do to the credibility of your eyewitness?
Why don't we go to the actual
You're talking about Philip
newspaper
Corso,
report?
I think, aren't you there,
Yes.
Michael?
The actual newspaper report from the 509th Bomb Group itself.
Let's
This
take a
was
look.
the original press release.
Flying saucer.
They state emphatically they recovered a flying saucer, a disc, 2 times in this article. The bottom line is this was an official military press release, their pronouncement. They said we got the whole enchilada, not debris.
The only problem with that, Don, is the formally classified record from the period, the end of July 1947 through the middle of 1955, which clearly demonstrates that the people who would have been responsible for taking that entire flying saucer that you're talking about and cracking the mystery. And they not only do these documents show no mention of Roswell at all, there are very explicit lamentations. Wait a minute. No, there is no mention of Roswell, but there are explicit statements lamentations about the fact that there is no physical evidence. We have no debris.
How many Project Blue Book reports have come out that have stated we definitively proved this was Venus?
The point is
this was an aircraft. This was a bird.
These were documents that were classified secret, top secret, and other levels. They were
But Carl, the Air Force today is trying to make us believe that the most elite military group in the world is going to misidentify a balloon for a flying saucer.
Maybe it's not misidentification. Maybe it's partial cover-up. Maybe it's stumbling their way to a story to cover up Cold War secrets. You know, how do you know it's not some of this?
Well, one of the things we have is Dr. Albert Crary diary. He was the man responsible for Project Mogul, Flight Number 4, the Air Force culprit. He tells us what it was. It was a cluster of balloons and a sonobuoy. No Ray-Win targets to scatter the debris.
He does not say anything about targets at all.
That's absolutely correct. That's what he says.
What he says, I said I put a sonobuoy up in a cluster of balloons. He doesn't talk about the rest of the array.
And the next day he says a whole array.
Professor Charles Moore, who was at the time the project engineer on Mogul, says very clearly that the kind of arrays that they were using that would have been Flight 4 involved all this material.
In August of 1990, the Chief of Staff, the former Chief of Staff of the 8th Air Force, Colonel Thomas Dubose, who later became a Brigadier General, stated emphatically on the record, "We were ordered by General Clements McMullen to cover this up. The balloon was a cover story for the debris that was to be hand-carried back to McMullen in Washington, D.C.
He said the weather balloon was a cover story.
He said the balloon story.
No, he said
the balloon story. I have it on tape.
It really doesn't matter
yes, it does matter.
Mogul was a weather balloon.
But they're both balloons.
Yes, they were all balloons.
The point here, exactly, which is why it was such an excellent cover for the whole
thing.
thing.
Why would McMullen want to have a balloon hand-carried back to him in Washington, D.C.? The bottom line is it makes no sense.
McMullen was the acting chief of SAC, the Strategic Air Command.
He was a deputy commander. He was a deputy
yes,
commander.
but he was acting at the time because the commander was out of pocket, okay? And his command had no knowledge of this project. This material was brought in by his boys. He was sitting back there in Washington asking to have this material brought in so that it could be identified. And meanwhile, the word was provided.
It was no secret, Carl, that the entire Western Alliance was looking for a Soviet atomic blast.
So paranoia was running rampant.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And these were just weather balloons. There was no reason that the people at Roswell couldn't identify them as weather balloons, because that's what they were.
Weather balloons carrying radar corner targets that were carrying odd-looking tape on them, and I might add a sonobuoy, which is a device that the Navy uses to detect submarines.
An acoustical device.
Found in the middle of New Mexico. Now, how many submarines cruise around New Mexico?
We're talking about the balloons. No, we're talking about balloons that they should have said. No, this is a balloon. There's no question about what it was.
The excitement was not over the balloons. The excitement was over the radar targets with the strange tape
and a farmer
and related other material.
Carl, we're still talking about balsa wood. We're talking about aluminum foil.
That's precisely the point.
Jesse Marcel stated on the record, he said, "Look, we found this strange material. I tried to cut it with my knife. I couldn't cut it. We tried to dent it. We tried to dent it with a sledgehammer.
Michael, what about that material?
Roger,
what about that material?
I'll take the Hoover dress for 100, please.
All right, I got to take a break, but when we come back, there's a lot more discussion here, and I want to thank my guests so far, Kevin Randall, Don Ecker, Carl Flock, and Michael Shermer. Don't you go anywhere, folks. Trust me, there's lots more in the War Room and SF Vortex when we come back.
There's a machine standing right alongside of us.
Then get out of its way so you don't miss what's coming up next. We'll preview the Sci-Fi Channel's Roswell schedule.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And later, Hollywood's appetite for extraterrestrials shows no sign of letting up. It's a 50-year stint that's more popular today than ever. We'll investigate it when SF Vortex returns. Series Sliders just picked up by the Sci-Fi Channel with an additional order for 22 new episodes, and the producer and screenwriter of the film Fire in the Sky, which focused on the alleged abduction of Travis Walton. Also here is actor Dwight Schultz. Of course, you know him as Lieutenant Reginald Barclay on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Also, Russ Estes is here, a documentary filmmaker who recently produced Roswell Remembered and Faces of the Visitors. Russ is also a researcher interested in the implications of Roswell and its effects on popular culture. And once again with us, Don Ecker, a UFO investigator and news editor of UFO magazine. Gentlemen, welcome. I want to start off this segment with maybe a letter Shall we do that? Here we go. Vortex viewer and conspiracy theorist Josh writes, I think Roswell has influenced everything from movies to personalities by fueling the idea that we are being visited by beings from another planet, and that the government has this giant conspiracy to keep us from the truth. Tracy Torme, why on earth would the government want to keep us from this type of truth?
Well, frankly, I think the idea of a giant government conspiracy makes no sense. The story is simply too big, and the secret is too well kept for too many years. So I really favor a very, very, very small conspiracy.
How can the secret? How can you say the secret's been too well kept for?
Well,
it's been, there's been a controversy about it since '47.
Why would the government want to have a conspiracy?
Well, let me answer that, though. The reason is it has been very well kept, because people that are really strong believers of this are in the vast minority as far as the public.
I agree. It's got to be a small. It's got to be a small bureaucracy.
Yes.
It's got to be a very small coterie of people that have been in on the secret from day one, because political administrations change. They're too transitory.
Exactly.
So it has to be really in-depth people that are down at the very core.
Okay, now you get into conspiracy. It all depends on what you construe as a conspiracy. Now, if we're dealing with a conspiracy and we're asking the question, why would the government want to instill a belief in UFOs, think of the Cash Landrum case. How hard is it to sue aliens?
Yes, but they paid a bureaucracy. They paid the Brookings Institute. They paid the Brookings Institute.
He's getting excited.
To develop a protocol. To develop a protocol. They asked them what would happen if we came in contact with alien civilizations.
Let's not forget
and the
what
Brookings
UFO
Institution
is.
said that scientists and engineers would be devastated if we ever revealed the fact that we had come in contact
UFO
with a
simply
superior
means
intelligence.
unidentified flying object.
Of course.
People today automatically presume you're talking about alien spaceships, although that may be one of the most logical explanations for many of the cases. It certainly does not cover it all, nor does it automatically transfer an alien ET influence.
I am not a believer in conspiracies to start with. I think the conspiracies are overblown. I think that we humans have a very hard time keeping a secret, especially for 50 years.
So you didn't believe that whole Johnny Cochran conspiracy then, did you?
Absolutely not.
Tracy Torme, let me ask you this. Is society more concerned with the aliens actually landing or the government conspiracy issue?
Well, I think it's very confusing. It's a palace of mirrors. And I think that to answer what we were talking about earlier, 50 years after Roswell, the great majority of journalists, politicians, scientists think UFOs are nonsense. We here at this table think that UFOs are real in one form or another. So the fact that all these years after this alleged crash, you still have this quality of people lump UFOs with astrology and Bigfoot, that is proof positive that they have kept the secret very well.
We've moved from the scientific into the political arena. This is no longer a question for scientists. Academia has absolutely shied away from this for the whole 50 years. So it behooves us now to go to our political representatives to try to force the issue.
For 50 years we kept the secret. We injected the mentally infirm and incapable with huge doses of plutonium. We used our own soldiers for mustard gas experiments. We kept that secret. You can keep secrets, and to say that we couldn't is ridiculous.
No, that is a much smaller secret than the idea of something extraterrestrial landing, crashing here, bodies, technology, etc. Yes, there are little tiny secrets that are kept for a while, but even the things you just named did come forward. Okay? Even the
when? How many years though? You're saying you can't. No, wait a minute.
Didn't
I'm responding to what you say. You say you can't do this, but here we have evidence of it having been done. So it mitigates
just 3
what you're
years
saying.
ago,
So what we're doing here is
from the
arguing
Atomic
the
Energy,
existence
the
of
Atomic Energy
conspiracy?
Commission, three years ago, came forward and said that yes, 50 years ago.
I'll say it in a nutshell. When Bill Clinton comes forward and says there's no such thing as UFOs, there are two possibilities. Either he's hiding a giant government conspiracy that has passed from administration to administration, or he really believes that. And in my opinion, he really believes that.
I think
he doesn't even know who hired Craig Livingstone.
Listen, he said that there was no security procedure passed down from one administration to the next, and there wasn't one journalist who questioned him.
My point is not
That's
Clinton.
part of the problem.
My point is not Clinton. My point is that...
No, but that's the...
I got to take a break here, not to cut you off, but I got to take a break. I think the whole thing is like the Marissa Tomei Oscar thing. It's unexplainable. I've got to take a break, but let's be back here in a few more minutes, right? Lots more about Roswell. Don't go anywhere. We're right back.
Are we still taking this break?
Most recent project is MTV's latest incarnation, Kung Pao. It airs in January. And he's back. He's actor Dwight Schultz, who, of course, you all know as Lieutenant Reginald Barkley on The Next Generation. And author Kevin Randle is back, author of over 80 books and one of the foremost experts, a very shy gentleman, experts here at Roswell. And a new face, Steve Krupnick is here, executive producer of the reality series, and it's one of my favorites, and I'm not just saying that. I'm talking about sightings. Guys, let's open my new discussion here with a letter, shall we? It comes from a viewer by the name of DJ, and he writes, aliens have been visiting and maybe crashing here longer than any of us have been around. Hollywood is a latecomer trying to make bucks on the topic. Dwight, do you agree with that?
No, I don't. They were in it from the very beginning. They are trying to make bucks, however. But they've been in the beginning and they reflect what's happening in society. So he doesn't know his film history, but he recognizes how to make a dollar.
Tracy, what's your take?
Well, movies, TV, and tabloids are safe places to talk about UFOs because people don't take them that seriously. It's really the mainstream journalists and people like 60 Minutes and people like that who should be diving into the topic, but who don't have the guts to do it.
Mr. Krupnik, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mirror of what's going on out there. It reflects people's beliefs, people's attitudes. It's also a way of kind of furthering and developing the myth.
Kevin, what do you think?
I think one of the best ways of making a movie interesting is throwing a little bit of history into it, so people are sitting there asking themselves, is this true? Did this really happen? And you get people out there asking questions, talking about a movie, and that's what you want to do in film.
And we like mysteries. Everybody, it's always trying to solve a puzzle, and there's a great deal of deception and a great deal of lying going on. People say things, and you question what they say, and I think motion picture producers and writers pick up on that, and they say, oh, I can turn this into a whodunit, and audiences love to solve the puzzle. They like to be the ones.
Are some of the producers, for lack of a better word, irresponsible when it comes to aliens, UFOs?
Just Tracy.
Just only Tracy.
Just this one.
Tracy, what do you think?
I think I'm responsible and everyone else is irresponsible.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. No,
well,
really.
I think one thing that we need to point out is we've got to separate what's going on here. If you've got a movie about a UFO, you can make up everything you want to. And if people are taking the movies as legitimate fact, then we have a real problem. When we did the Showtime movie Roswell, people were complaining because, well, this was inaccurate, that was inaccurate, and my answer has always been, hey, we're making a movie here. We're not making a fact-based documentary.
How many times did your mother ever send you to the movies and say, remember what everything that's said now, darling, because I want to talk to you about it when it comes home to find out whether it is, what you got out of it. That doesn't happen.
But I think there's a fair share of cynicism and irresponsibility, especially in shows like the Alien Autopsy and things like that.
But that was supposed to be fact-based, and I think almost everybody in the UFO community is now saying that Alien Autopsy was a hoax.
But it's the UFO community, which is a closed circle, but this has a much broader audience. And when basically, it airs on one of the major networks, it's out there and it opens up a forum that ultimately leads into something sarcastic and cynical and humorous.
But it was a brilliant hoax.
It was a brilliant hoax.
I'm sorry.
It was a money-making hoax.
It was
Tracy, was it a brilliant hoax?
Well, they spent a lot of money on it, so I'd say it was an elaborate hoax. I wouldn't call it a brilliant hoax. I think they could have done better to fool people, but whoever did it took a lot of time and spent a lot of money on it, and that's what's interesting, is who would do that?
Dwight, do you agree?
Well, he just took those words right out of my head,
well, I'm sure you got something else.
But a great deal of money. Now, I disagree with him. I think, contrary to what everybody says, and I'm a sci-fi fan, I thought it was an incredible hoax. And I thought that the body looked better than any of the bodies that I have seen in the other now replicated autopsies. And I saw several real autopsies, and I thought it looked very, very good.
But they chose a body that really didn't fit all the reports that you've kept.
But that doesn't have anything to do with it.
To tie it into Roswell and say it came from Roswell, and then to put a different body type.
But they kept trying to tie it into Roswell, and they kept trying to tie it into Roswell, and now that they've seen where the mistakes are made in their autopsy, well, it really wasn't Roswell. It was Socorro, New Mexico, and it was 30 days earlier. Well, that's all garbage.
Well, no, that was from the beginning.
Well, my point is, if they were going to spend that kind of money on it, they could have been more technically accurate and closer to the real Roswell incident, which would have made it a much more.
Do you know why it's a terrible hoax? I mean, it may be I think
it's
a great piece of latex.
It's a
great piece of latex laying on a table. I think it's a terrible hoax because if you've ever looked at any Army autopsy footage, it is not shot like a new wave film from the French new wave film from the 1960s.
And there's a still photographer.
Absolutely. And for something that's significant, and for people to sit there and kind of accept it.
But I will say this: I made a lot of money on it because I'm behind it.
That's very good. Very good.
On that note, I got to take a break, but there's lots more to come from in and out of the War Room, folks. So don't touch that dial. We're right back. With Tracy Torme, author Kevin Randall, filmmaker Russ Estes, and ufologist Carl T. Flock. And Carl, are we alone?
Absolutely not. I think that there's no question, given the size of the universe, that we can't possibly be alone.
Mr. Randall, are we alone?
Absolutely not. I think that the evidences we find from other planets in our own solar system where life is now being credited as developing, I think that proves that we're not alone in the universe.
Russ, are we alone?
We are not alone, but I question whether we're visited by extraterrestrials or extra-dimensionals.
Aha, Mr. Tormey?
We are definitely not alone, and chances are very good that we have been visited by extraterrestrials.
That's
at some point.
we are not alone. If we're not alone, why do I sit home by myself every Saturday night? Carl, have we been visited?
I believe that we have. I think that we've definitely been visited. I have a kind of working hypothesis that they were here and they left. The reason I believe this, that is why I believe that we've been visited, is there's too large a body of credible data that says that something very real has been seen, and some of those things definitely look like spaceships.
Kevin, have we been visited?
Absolutely, no question about it. I think the evidence is conclusive. I think we can see where the Air Force has attempted to suppress that evidence. And if we take a look at the files, the scientific evidence that is demanded by the skeptics is all there.
Mr. Estes, you think we've been visited, but you don't know by who?
Just to add energy and conflict,
okay.
I feel we have certainly been visited. Certainly. I cannot say that it is extraterrestrial.
What proof do you have?
I have absolutely no proof.
Okay, there you have it.
But he's got a nice car.
I agree with Russ. I think that we have been visited by non-terrestrial intelligence. As to where it comes from, I think that's totally an agnostic question. I think you can make a case for a number of things. But something has been here, and there, despite what the Carl Sagans of the world will tell you, there is physical evidence to back that up in abundance.
Kevin, you agree with that?
Absolutely. The physical evidence that's out there. When the skeptics say, where is the evidence? I always say, what do you want? We can supply every kind of evidence. You want photographs, you want movie footage, landing trace cases where they interact with the environment, you want radar cases, everything is there.
Russ, can we provide all that evidence in your opinion?
No.
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 Carl?
I think that there is a large body of evidence that I would not characterize as physical, but very convincing and strong evidence that we are being visited by or have been visited by some other
visitation. I would go so far as to say that anyone with an open mind and a decent amount of intelligence that looks into the UFO phenomena must come away believing there is a real phenomena here.
Absolutely. In fact, probably more than one kind of phenomena.
But
when you boil it down...
If you're looking for nuts and bolts, though, if you're getting out there and saying, put it in my hand, you're not going to get
the one
it.
thing that's for certain is the intelligence behind it is non-human, so who knows how they think and why they do the things they do.
All right, gentlemen, you've all been great. I want to thank all of the guests today here on SF Vortex: Kevin Randall, Carl Flock, Russ Estes, Tracy Tormey, Dwight Schultz, Michael Shermer, Don Ecker, Steve Krupnick.
Don King.
Everybody was here. Believe it or not, there's much more to come in the Vortex. Don't change that channel.